All right, so next up, we've got Wayne, Jordan, and Patricia, and they're going to give us some of their best tips and tricks for applications.
Thanks, Jason. Let me flip my screen here. All right, thanks everyone for joining us today. We're just going to walk through some tips and tricks for when you're compiling your application. Here we go. First tip is prepare early. Remember to read and reread the RFA. Note the important dates, review application instructions, gather required documents ASAP. As soon as you decide that you're going to apply, start gathering your documents, know your dates, and also really look over those instructions. Here's a summary of our key dates. This can also be found on our website, and we can share that with you as time goes on. And navigating the request for applications. There's a table of contents. Inside that is grant information and conditions, program priorities, application access requirements, an application guide with sample screens, and resources. And here are required documents and certifications. I'm not going to list them all. This is also in the RFA information, but this is something to expect to be able to turn in with your application. I'll just wait a few seconds for everyone to get a chance to look at it. And to find grant forms, you can go to the GCC website, and here's our address at the top of the screen. That's what the web page looks like. And here's another tip: make system access a priority. Remember, gaining access to systems might take time, but don't wait until the last minute. You need to have a UEI number, an NCID, and also access to the EBS platform that we covered earlier this morning. And here's a little bit more information about EBS, or Enterprise Business Solutions. Like I said, NCID is required for EBS access. Access to EBS must be requested. There may be a delay in approval, so be patient and just let us know if that delay is taking a while. Officials must also have access to the system. And remember, EBS access and NCID credentials must match exactly. And then here's identifying your correct officials that would be having roles in this application process: your authorizing official, your financial officer, and your project director. And now Jordan is going to share a few more tips and tricks.
Thank you, Wayne. Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan. I am one of the VOCA planners. I'm just going to go over a few more of the tips and tricks for completing your application with GCC. So these next couple slides are going to go over these bullet points. Collaboration is key, include data wherever possible, and then, of course, explore the RFA resources section. So collaboration is key. This is something that we really look for in your applications, is making sure that you are partnering with other community members and other stakeholders. So we want to make sure that your project is collaborative within your community. The other thing to make sure is that it has long-term sustainability. So how will you use these new or existing resources to continue this project after the grant ends? Is there another source of funding? And then how will you involve your community and engage your decision makers to make sure that you are addressing the community needs that have been discussed in your proposal? And there is a whole partnerships section in the application, and that's where you can give us a little bit more detailed information on that. So the next thing is include data wherever possible. We look for this a lot in the project abstract, in the narrative, also the goals and objectives sometimes. These really strengthen your proposal because it allows us to get an idea of the need for your project and how it is going to serve your community. So we look for things for data from like public databases, surveys, any sort of research to show this is what is happening in our community and this is how we are going to solve or at least help with alleviating the problem that is prevalent in our community. The data should be focusing on the problem that your project is seeking to address. So, you know, if your project is a child abuse grant, then make sure that it is focusing on child abuse statistics and not elder abuse and, you know, vice versa, things like that. Just make sure everything that you provide in your application is relevant to the project purpose and goal. Okay, and like Wayne said, there is a whole RFA resources section. This is going to include links to various resources that each of the funding source uses, also a glossary of terms. So it'll give very frequently used terms across all the funding sources, so you can get an idea of what we are talking about when we use specific terms. And then last thing is the scoring matrix. This is updated every year. The scoring matrix is used by your committee and your committee members to review your application and make sure that this is a project that they want to fund for the period of performance. So they are looking at all of the different categories in the application, whether it's scoring the project abstract, project narrative, goals and objectives, everything within the project they are looking at to make sure that this is a project that they want to fund moving forward. Okay, and then like I said, each RFA has links to external resources specific to each funding source. So for example, the juvenile justice RFA will have information regarding the state's juvenile justice system, where VOCA and VAWA might have information related to the domestic violence responses and things of that sort. So make sure you are going to that section of your RFA. And I think Sandy mentioned earlier, those will be released in November. So you will have a solid idea of what funding source you are applying for and what that funding source is looking for in your application. And then these are the goals and objectives in your application. We use the acronym SMART, which you probably have heard of. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. This is a section that I see often being sent back for edits, primarily because it's either not specific or it's not measurable. So you want to make sure that your goal is clear and focused, that it is focusing on the project goal. So not necessarily your agency as a whole, but what you are planning to focus on in this project. Same thing with measurable. You want to be able to say, this is how we are going to achieve the goal that we want to, that we are looking to complete. So it's not going to be, it's basically demonstrating how you will know that you have reached it. And then achievable, it needs to be realistic within the, achievable and realistic within the time frame that we have set forth. So, you know, as much as we all want to solve world peace, that's not going to likely happen within your period of performance. So that's not going to be an achievable goal. You need to make sure that it is related to the project and something that the project is going to be able to achieve within this time frame. And then lastly, this is just a slide that demonstrates many of the things that you can find on the GCC website. So any important dates, you will need to make sure to go to the website and make sure you have all of those on your calendar. The RFA will be listed there, as well as the eligibility conditions for the application that you are, or for the funding source that you are applying for, as well as any program requirements. Any documentation that your funding source is looking for, Wayne mentioned earlier, that is on the website as well. So you can find all the documents that you need to complete for your application on the website as well. And then any other GCC resources are listed there. And of course, reach out to your planner or your grant manager to make sure you have all the information that you need. And then I think that does it for us. Patricia, I know you, I believe you were monitoring the chat. Were there any questions?
No, there are not any questions in the chat, Jordan.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We can put our emails in the chat so you have those available. But other than that, thank you so much for listening to us.